Good afternoon. Welcome to highlights for the month of October. This month we're going to do things a little different. It's time for taxes and thinking about exemptions. So I've invited Gary Wilson, who is a selectman and serves on the committee with me for the Committee for Taxation Relief for Seniors. We've both been on the committee now for 3 years.
Yep.
And been working hard at trying to find ways that we can help seniors to reduce their taxes. And so today we're just going to sort of hit on the highlights and talk about all the different exemptions that there are. Please feel free to jump in and ask questions, and
Sure.
I'll try to answer them. And maybe you want to talk a little bit about the committee that we're on, or?
Yeah, I think the selectmen, thank you for having me. I think there's very few things more important that affect people's lives more than taxes, especially as we age and we become dependent on, a fixed income. So I think it's very important that we share the information that we have and do all we can within the state guidelines of what we can hopefully assist our not only aging population, but also individuals that are just in need in general, that just meeting with some financial difficulties. And it doesn't have to be a lifelong type of thing, but some of these programs I think that you're going to speak to are based on, even if it's a one-year thing, or if you're just going through a difficult time, there's some things that the town has that might be able to help and assist them through that difficult time. And we all know taxes they're not going to go down. This is...
For sure.
I mean, I think when you're younger you joke about it, death and taxes, but it's
but
a
now
truth.
it's real.
It is, and it's not anything that all we can do and all a select board can do is do all that we can to slow it down, and that very, very challenging. As anyone that's been involved on the select board or on a committee, finance committee, and things that obviously no one's more familiar with the tax program than you that we have in town, but it's a matter of just trying to get commercial growth in town. This is from a select board point of view, trying to share that burden on our citizens so that we have even more outs for people to hopefully be able to afford living in Littleton. We don't want to lose people because they can't afford to live here, and that's something we hear all the time.
Yeah, and one of the things that's great about the select board in the past is whenever the Board of Assessors has put an article on town meeting to increase the exemptions, the selectmen have always backed our warrant articles. And luckily, every time we've done this, the townspeople have agreed. So now all exemptions that we have in Littleton have been doubled over the years. Many towns in Massachusetts stick with the state guideline and don't increase anything.
Yep.
But we've been able to do that through the selectmen helping to work with us in their Board of Assessors.
Yeah, I think it's about maximizing the benefit, and whatever the state will let us do, I think we have to push that threshold and constantly be talking to our representatives to increase some of these benefits so that we keep up with the times. Cost of living isn't going down either. This is going up. So
right.
These things cannot stay static. We have to constantly be aware and petitioning the state to increase some of these programs that we're going to talk about today. So.
Right. So going forward, we can start with the first exemption.
Sure.
And just highlight the main items.
Okay.
It would be clause 41D, and it's an exemption that reduces your property tax by $500 to $1,000, and you have to be 65 in order to apply. The income and asset requirements are income $23,897 if you're single, and $34,844 if you're married. And the assets can be 47,132 and married 58,915, not including your home value. Whenever we talk about these exemptions, we do not include your home value in the assets.
Okay, so we talk a little bit about assets, I guess. What are we, when you're referring to all assets outside the home, are we referring, well, obviously a second home would be considered an asset.
Your second home, motor vehicles,
Yeah,
boats,
yeah,
your Social Security,
okay,
and your income coming in. So if you're still working
Yep.
at 65, that would have to be included.
sure. Yeah, so this program, the senior tax exemption, up to 1,500, is that correct?
Up to 1,000.
Up to 1,000. So I think that's one of those programs, like I said, that if we keep on the state about increasing that, allowing us to increase that number, I think we could do a lot more to help citizens in that, because that is quite a low income that we're talking about. Those are typically individuals or families that are dependent on Social Security or living off Social Security, have very few assets.
Right.
So I would like to see that number hopefully increase over time, because it is.
We'd also like the state to allow us to increase that income.
Yeah.
To say that,
rate, yeah.
you could have a higher income.
Yeah.
They have not been willing to do that at this point, so we're just stuck
Yep.
right at that exemption. There's more, the next slide, please, will give you more about your Social Security earnings and your bank account, pension, stocks, bonds, and your birth certificate. Now, when you have to bring these into the assessor's office or EHS to fill out your application, everything is confidential. The assessor's office does not keep your checking account or your bank account. They'll look at what your balance is, and then they'll write it down. They don't have any bank account numbers. They don't want any bank account numbers. Yep. They don't want your Social Security number. They just want to know what you make a year in Social Security, just to make that threshold of $23,000 if you're single. And you have to also have owned your house for 10 years.
Okay.
Most of the applications are domiciled for 10 years, living in Massachusetts for 5. That happens for most of them.
Okay. So that's the other way around. So you're domiciled for 10 years in Mass.
Mass.
Yeah. So 5 years as a resident.
Right.
In the town of Littleton. So.
Yeah.
And what is the reasons for that?
They want to know that the state wants you to know that you're a resident. You've been here a while.
Okay. So
that's the only reason they ask that.
Okay. And then the state, in the town, even more so.
Right.
Otherwise, I guess there's a potential to have, well, Littleton has the no domicile requirement. Everyone would want to come here if we're the only ones offering a tax benefit like that. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
So I understand the guidelines. I think that's a fair guideline of 5 years. I guess the question is that also state-driven, or is that a town?
State-driven.
Okay, state-driven as well.
It's all state. All of these things are state-driven.
Okay.
Okay. And the next exemption is the blind exemption. And that provides $500 to $1,000 off of your tax bill. And the only thing you need to provide is a certificate of the blind each year. And it's given by your physician. And it's a certificate they stamp that the state says that's what it is, that's what you get. So you get $500 the first year, and then every year thereafter you get $1,000.
Okay.
So
not a high population probably that this affects, but it's just another benefit.
There are a few that are getting it at the moment.
And we're not talking about the typical blindness you may see on TV. We're talking about people that become legally blind over time. And
you have to have a certificate of blind in order to get that exemption.
Right. So this is, and these are, I just want to make sure that the public knows, the citizens know that these programs aren't all inclusive. They can be used together. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I think there's.
And also if you have a husband and wife and one gets a senior exemption and one gets a blind exemption or a veteran exemption, they can go together.
Fantastic.
So you can use, if you're a disabled vet and your wife is getting a senior exemption, you can get both.
Okay, which we'll talk about in a minute on the veterans
The
exemptions.
veterans when we get there, yeah.
Thank you.
And the next one is the tax deferral. And that is, it doesn't currently eliminate your taxes, but you can decide to put whatever amount you want
Okay.
towards the deferral. Next slide. So what it is it can help you to maintain your taxes. One of the assessors at a meeting brought up the fact that supposing your taxes are $5,000 a year and you can't pay a penny more than that, I mean, you're budgeting, you're doing the best that you can. Each year that it's more than $5,000, defer that difference.
Okay.
It's not a full deferral of your taxes, it's just keeping you level so you can stay on your budget and stay in your home.
Okay. So I know we're going to talk a little bit more about this one. This one's a little bit more probably complex than the others. So you have the 65 limit as far as age, but also people. I understand where people would be hesitant because you're basically saying, I'm not going to pay my taxes this year, and this is what I talked about when we opened. Sometimes people are just going through a difficult time and they need a break from taxes. And I think this is a program that helps amazingly with that. And we'll talk
Well, first of all, you have to be 65 and
Yep.
over and an income of 55,000 or less.
So that's a little bit
So
more.
anybody above that,
Yep.
this doesn't,
Right.
include you. But if you're 55 or less, it does.
Right. And now is that a household income?
Household income.
Okay. So once again, if you're looking at Social Security, usually most individuals by 65 to 67, if not earlier, will be on Social Security or collecting. So just look at that number, and then hopefully, when if you're looking for something like this, watch your income. If you're working, see some of the side jobs, it can add up quickly. We know as some of the part-time work. So if you're right on the cusp, this may be very beneficial.
And the thing is, if you just look at your W-2 at the end of the year, your income tax, and see what that number is. And as long as it's below 55,
Yep.
you can qualify, because we don't look at expenses or anything else. It's just that one income.
Which makes it a little different than the other programs.
Yeah,
as well.
and what it does too is if you're, like, say, having a bad year with medical issues, or you need a roof replaced and you're on a limited income, you defer all of your taxes that year. That gives you the $5,000 or $6,000 you may have put aside to pay your taxes. You can put that towards getting your roof fixed or getting a new boiler or anything that's really going to allow you to stay in your home.
Okay.
So those are reasons, I think, to do it.
Yep.
And then to go further on, if you defer any or all, the payback is 1% on the unpaid balance, and you don't have to pay it back until you sell your house or you die and your estate takes over.
Okay.
There is a lien put on the property. It costs about $120 to put the lien on.
Sure.
It doesn't cost you anything to take the lien off.
Okay.
And
So to put that into perspective, we know anyone that's lived in Littleton for a period of time knows that your property values are going up faster than 1%. We know that from our tax bills. So
right.
the 1% is, you're not going to get a better loan than the 1% on this. So, and it's something that I saw on the slide. There's on the bottom, obviously can't exceed 50% of the value of your home. That would
take a long time.
It would. If your home's worth $600,000, which many homes, that's the average, a little over $600 now in Littleton. Up to $300,000 you could defer And when you pass away or when you sell the property, yes, that money is going to go to the town with the 1% accrual. And then, but you've gotten through all of this without having to pay the taxes. Or maybe, like you said, you're just using it for 1 year. Maybe your taxes are $10,000, $12,000. 1 year, at 1% is
And you can
well worth it.
You can pay it back anytime you want.
Yep.
If you take, you don't pay this year, and over the next few years you can pay a little bit back. Then you pay a little bit back at a time. And like I said, defer a portion, all of it. Or we had one client who his bill went up this year, and it went up past the amount that he could afford. And he came in and he filled out everything, and he looked at what his budget was. And he needed $1,110 in order to make it. So he deferred that amount of money.
Yeah.
And he said, if I can pay it back next year, I will. If I can't, I won't. But that's how it can work for you. If you don't have to just jump on in and say, all right, I'm never going to pay my taxes again.
Right.
Just do it. And Amy and Alicia in the EHS office will sit with you, help you fill out the applications, as will Kim or Hannah in the assessor's office. They're all willing to sit privately in a room.
Yep.
You never have to explain why you need to do it. Nobody asks you why.
Right, there's no reports going to, even the select board, there's no report coming to us.
The select board don't see it at all.
Right, at the end of the year, we know how many people are utilizing programs, because that's important to know. And that's why our committee was created, to help. We think some of our programs, like this one, are underutilized.
Right.
So I think the more we can get the word out, the better.
And having been working in the assessor's office for 35 years and now a board member, I can tell you, I used to do the applications. The board never saw them.
Yeah.
They were flipped upside down. The amount was there. They signed them. They never even looked at them.
Yep.
And that's the way it's always been done.
Yep. So that takes care of the privacy issue.
Privacy issue, very, very private.
The other, I guess, would be it's not really a stigma, but people take a lot of pride in their homes, especially if they've paid off their mortgages.
Right.
But even if you haven't, I think people like to hold, that's something they can pass on. So that's something that people have to struggle with within themselves. But if you look at what you're leaving behind, if that's the plan to leave to your loved ones, say your house, if there's little pieces here and there that a year or two that you had to get something done, like you had mentioned, a roof or something, or
to allow you to stay in your home.
Yeah, it's well worth, and your family would definitely understand, I would hope.
And I think another thing that I found a lot when I worked in the office is people are very private.
Yep.
And it's hard for them to come to terms to come in and talk with anyone about their finances. But believe me, it is so confidential and so private, and it's done with such dignity. You should not feel bad at all.
That's important.
It's very important. Yep. So I think now we've beat that one to death.
I don't know. I think is there more? Is there another slide for 41? I want to make sure people.
Well, you have to have owned your house for a year again, and the due date is December 15th, or 3 months after your bill is mailed. Yeah. So when the bills go out in December, those are the actual bills, and that will give you 3 months to still come in and apply.
Okay. And this is important that there's an applicant may be the sole owner or own jointly with a spouse.
Right.
That's important because I know as a lot of people when they age, they put their house in a trust, and that would not qualify for this because now you've got other people on the
That's right.
on the trust. So another decision to make there. And the same rules apply with the ownership, like you'd mentioned, the duration and domicile.
Yeah, that's the same on just about all of them.
Okay.
So I think now we can go on to the next one, which would be
Surviving spouse, isn't that?
the surviving spouse. This one is you have to be 70 instead of 65.
Okay.
And you get 175 the first year and 350 the second year and every year after that. The surviving spouse, or you could be a surviving spouse if you're 70, or a minor of parents who have been deceased. There is no income limit, but there are asset limits.
Sure.
And you can't exceed $40,000 in assets.
Okay.
That gets,
Excluding the home, of course.
yeah, excluding
once
the
again.
home. That gets a little tricky.
It can be.
That, again, I wish the state would increase that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work. I know that Mr. Barbella has put forward some legislation for the
Yes.
state, and and others that have tried to petition having an age in Massachusetts where you no longer pay taxes. And I think that if we look at something like this, that's probably an end goal that we would love to see, where our senior citizens are truly seniors that pick the age. I know there are certain states that do have these type of exemptions. I think Massachusetts can do it. I just think it's going to take a lot of more upward swelling towards our legislature.
Getting people to understand and listen.
Yeah, and that,
Yeah.
now that of course shifts burden to the rest of the tax base, but we're all going to get there someday. So I think it's important to take care of those that are much more restricted in their income, and as seen by some of these restrictions. And it's the right thing to do. So.
Right. And this, again, you have to show your birth certificate
Yeah.
and your bank accounts and that kind of thing.
Yes.
But we don't hold on to any of those.
That's good.
And the next one is the Senior Tax Work-Off Program. And they have it for seniors and they have it for veterans. I'll speak to the seniors and you can speak to the veterans.
Sure. They're visibly the same program.
They're visibly the same. And this year, the max amount is $1,500, and you have to work $100. You volunteer 100 hours. And the credit is put against your taxes. You don't receive any money. It goes directly against your taxes. And you sign up in the EHS office, COA office, July 15th, and then you list the jobs that you think you would like to do in the town, and then Alicia and Liz set up a schedule and put you on, and you don't have to work every day, you don't have to work every week, you work at your convenience.
Give some examples of what people are doing, what some of the seniors are doing.
There are people working in the delivering Meals on Wheels.
Okay.
They're working in the assessor's office filing. They're working upstairs filing. They're doing, they work with me for crafts. They do this, what I think is really neat, is every 2 weeks, COA goes to the Loaves and Fishes and gets 99 bags of food.
Okay.
And then they have a list. And the senior workers come and help deliver all of that. They don't work over at the library, but we've had a woman this year. She's been out cleaning the trails, cutting and cleaning, and men have come in and done painting and little repair work.
And even I've seen the minutes, of all the boards and committees we have. Some of our seniors, the tax rep, they do the minutes for those.
They do the minutes. That's right.
Now with where most of our meetings, almost all of our meetings are televised through all of these committees. They don't have to be present. They can actually watch the video of our meeting and take the minutes of it.
Yeah,
So
and they've all said they like doing that.
Yeah.
Because they can go back and redo it a second time.
Yep.
And really get it all.
Yeah. All right. So the veterans part of this, and why it's on the same slide, is because it is the same hours. The max abatement is $1,500. 100 hours worked, and the hourly rate is obviously minimum wage for Massachusetts. Outside of that, and outside of it, the code that governs this, which you tax people need to know, it's virtually the same for anyone that's doing it.
Right.
Now, you had mentioned that if you have a spouse, a senior spouse in a household, and a veteran in a household, those two programs, both can do the program?
Yes.
Is that correct? What about if you had just two seniors in a household?
No.
So, okay, so one of each program in a house can do it?
Yes.
Okay. So that's, and there's a substantial number of veterans that would qualify here if they were willing to
apply.
and help. You know, it's such a valuable. How many individuals over the last
This year, in the senior side,
Yeah.
we have 100.
And that's
I mean, that's helping a lot of people.
it is.
$1,500 off their taxes,
Yep.
and they take their time. It's over 9 months that they work. Oh, another thing is they have seniors working during the elections.
Right.
Diane
Sure.
has them working in the
Yep.
elections, which is an easy job. You know, it helps out.
Yep. It's critical because otherwise we'd be hiring, paying staff overtime to have to come in to do these things that we have to do. So it's a valuable resource as well to the town.
Yeah, because we have seniors right now working in the early election,
Yep. Yes, for a couple of weeks.
and that would be
Every day.
expensive if we had
Oh
to
my
pay for
goodness.
that.
Sure would.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, so on to the next.
Okay, the next exemption is for veterans with 10% disability, and they can get a full $400 off of the exemption
Okay.
if they qualify. The next slide.
So this is a 10%, a veteran is found to be 10% or more disabled.
Right.
A service-connected disability can apply for the $400 exemption.
And they have to show their veterans disability
Yep.
certificate that they get every year
Yep.
from the Veterans Office.
Okay.
And it will tell the assessors it's 10%
Yep.
or whatever the amount is.
Sure.
And then we work it from that point forward.
Okay.
So I have to read these because it's a little sketchy. I haven't done it for a while.
I did want to make sure that we're clear because we got off of the income requirement piece. There are no income requirements to the tax work-off program, correct?
No.
And there are none to
You have to be 60.
Right, there's age requirements, but as far as assets, it's just
No.
come in, show that, I'm a senior, here's my birth certificate.
Yeah.
And a veteran would show their disability rating from the VA.
Yeah.
And they would qualify for these programs without,
Without any other difficulty.
so.
Yeah. Okay, so going back now for the 22E, which is the large exemption, that one is you have to be 100% disabled. And you can get $1,000 the first year, and you get $2,000 every year thereafter. And again, you have to be domiciled in Mass for at least 6 months, or enlist prior to enlisting, or lived in Massachusetts for at least 2 consecutive years prior to the tax year. So it's a little different than
Yep.
the other ones, and you must own and occupy the house.
Right, so it can't be your vacation home here or
No.
your second. So,
No,
no, that's another, I guess, giving back to veterans that were that have severe, potentially severe disabilities. That
and we do have quite a few. These are the list of the different exemptions you can get. You can get 22 little a if you've lost a limb or your eyesight. You can get a different one if you've lost both limbs and eyesight. Your total disability requiring adopted housing. Widow of soldier killed in action. 100% disabled. Paraplegics, and then the BRAVE Act. You can come in if you qualify under any of those, and the amount is the same.
Okay, so that's important for people to know as well because it's much more expansive than just the veteran themselves.
Yes.
It
Yes.
includes the spouse, includes guardian. If your loved one comes back from military service and has 100% disability, and they may be living at home with parents, the parents would qualify for this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There's also one for the Gold Mother,
Yep.
so that you can come in and get an exemption.
So I guess the message is if you aren't sure if you fall in any of these categories, reach out to the
Go to the
the
assessor's.
assessor's office and
The assessor's office will help you with any of these. And again, like I said, they are the best. They
Great.
work hard at what they're doing. They love helping people. And the same with Alicia and Amy in the outreach programs. They'll sit with you privately and help you with any information that you need to get. They'll help you get it if you can't get a hold of it.
Yep.
So I hope that we've been able to share some information to really help all of you.
Yeah, I'm glad you had me on because I think this is very important. And if it reaches just a handful of people that watch this, and maybe they can share the information with someone that they know that could use this, or it would benefit. And that's how we get the message out. You said you were also putting this out other ways besides obviously on LCC.
Yes, we're going to, in the broadcaster that's going out, you should get next week in the mail, it's going to have a little spiel about the defer tax, and there's an insert, and it's going to list all the exemptions
Great.
and how you qualify and who you call and where you go. So please feel free to read it over, bring it in, show them to the ladies, and they'll help you.
Sure.
We're also going to put it out on the Selectmen's newspaper, and it's going on Facebook and on YouTube. And if we can think of anywhere else to put it for people to read, we will.
Yeah, I think the select boards, right now it's electronic, and I know it's up on our website, but I think our goal, this select board's goal, and I know select board member Morrison's been championing this, we would like to get it eventually as a mail out, and that would require a budget set aside to do that. But I think that without a newspaper in town, it would be nice to get even if it's a quarterly thing that kind of shows everything. And these type of programs, if people are being reminded quarterly of some of these things, even, it's a huge benefit. So.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't use computers,
right, it's the other.
you can get a copy of the newspaper
Yep.
in the library or in EHS.
Yep. So we do have limited copies
Yeah.
available to those
Right.
locations.
So we're trying to help you and get out there and do whatever we can
Yes.
to make it a little easier.
Right.
So thank you, Gary,
Thank
for
you.
coming. I appreciate it.
Anytime. This is valuable and important, so I appreciate
Okay.
it.
Appreciate you coming.
Thank you. Thank you.